Thank you, Sir. So, a very good afternoon, and yes, I'm back again. My picture I've already told you about, right here generated. But it's a great pleasure to have such a pioneers in health tech, in research, and just I was having a catch up with them before getting into this on the stage. So I think there's a lot to learn from them. I think what we laid out as a theme to achieve was to see the structure around collaborate, disrupt, and lead, right? And we'll divide the discussion, probably kind of a rapid fire question round. We can start with collaborate, and what I want to ask all of you is, all of you are associated, deeply associated with the innovation ecosystem, health tech ecosystem, research ecosystem. So we can start by what is not working, honestly, right? Why so many innovations from lab or from idea are not reaching the bedside, right? If you can start from there, then we fill it up. Yeah.
So I just finally listed Dr. Mr. Nagendra Nagaraja, CEO of QBA, because there was a shift in the iPad. I didn't check it properly. Which made recently history by launching India's first 25-qubit supercomputing. We had a previous session, the panelist from that, and another national quantum mission, the pioneer and intersection of quantum computing and AI-driven healthcare. I'm sorry I missed out the name in between. Thank you. Please carry on.
You never left the stage, right? So okay, so yeah, we can go one by one.
So your question was about what's
honestly what is not working? Right? Why so many innovations are failing to reach the bedside?
Yeah, two main things. One is we've been working in silos, healthcare domain engineers, and of course the other groups who need to work together. The other important thing is this whole concept of human-centered design and design thinking, especially in health, is still evolving. I think it needs to come through. We're seeing a lot of traction these days, and I think that's something we should address. Thank you. I think a lot of if some startup is not being successful, I think there are a lot of things that are not working. And of course, these two, even from the policy, even from the business aspect, you need to know product market. So, for example, even some doctors and they want with some physicists and engineers, they come up with some brilliant solution, but they don't know if that market actually needs that particular solution. So there are multiple problems in this, like if something is not working out. It's very hard to basically encapsulate all of them right now on this rapid fire.
Yeah. So one thing, because it's rapid fire, so I cannot let you go away. So one thing you say seen majorly and as a reason or most recent, whatever you want to call it. The major problem, the major reason for which startup is not working, especially healthcare, is product market fit. Because you can build the best of tech, you can have the best of policies, but whatever you are building is not made in the market, then of course it's not going to work. Any example here? Your idea was great, product was great, but the market was not there. I think that's not.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, how many of you are here running hospitals? Many of you run hospitals. Yeah, I think we all have more examples of field innovation rather than successful implementing programs. So, I'm a physician and closely working with both administrators as well as doctors, and definitely understanding the real world challenges that the doctors and nurses face. By the innovators, technologists is definitely one of the reasons, and understanding the specific needs and adoption. Some of the examples I can give, which probably failed, and I saw the HealthFuturist here. As a physician and as an innovator, I've been trying so many products to be implemented at the grassroots level. HealthFuturist was one of them. It was probably 7 or 8 years back where HealthFuturist came in and we were trying to innovate in the preventive healthcare. There's so much of discussion that happens in preventive healthcare, and that was the time when they had innovated in a way that we could give a report card of all the blood tests that a person has done, and whether they're in red bucket, green okay, there was so much of resistance to implement that because the computer would pick up even a small variation. Hemoglobin cutoff is 12.8. Somebody is at 12.7. So they are in a red bucket, because it is less than 12.8. So the point one difference. A year bucket, yeah. So then the doctors had to spend a lot of time explaining to patient that it is okay if that is point one difference is there, it is not going to change anything. But along the way, what did not work is that we had to continue to pursue the doctors and the technical team to come to some common ground, and where there was a meeting of the ideas in the minds, and they were comfortable implementing. I think we did not reach to that point, and somewhere there was a loss of interest from our side to implement, and also the follow-ups. So somewhere there it kind of fizzles out. I think these something are not short term. Any intervention that we need to do are long term. Long term problems in healthcare, especially, we have to have a lot of patience, and we have to continue to follow up until we reach a conclusion saying that okay, we are not going to do this, or we are going to do that. So I think that is where things fail and fall between the cracks.
So persistence. See, my experience about ideas is that I've been in business for 10 years now. So the idea, well-processed idea, will be very difficult to fail. Okay, well-processed in this is the ideator or the innovator who comes up with the idea. So he has to process that very well before it is going into implementation. If the idea is well processed, then the chances of failure is very less. So we can give an example of what happens with I had one idea called agent-based compute, where nobody heard what is agent. Okay, that is in 2016 that I came out of NVIDIA. That was so ahead of a time. I was talking to Sam at that time. Okay, we had a discussion on he was in OpenAI and that was in a company called Alphasis. So it was very well ahead of time. But my underestimation of that is people understand it. Okay, but then at that time people didn't understand it. So basically, if you process the idea well, the probability of that failure is very less.
So, for our audience, can you just elaborate a bit? What do you mean by process? Idea processed well?
Yes, see, we have computers, right? So the most powerful computer in this world is innovator. Okay, so when you are an innovator, you have to calculate what happens if this idea become product. Who are the stakeholders for this? What are the perception? And what is the market? What is the ecosystem? Right. So when you well process this, all this will be aligned to make idea successful. Okay.
To Dr. Srinivas' question, the product market fit included in that process.
That's one of them. See, even if you have a product market fit, then you have to really worry about the competition or the saturation of the market. Product market fit is one of them. See, I can do a pencil. Pencil has a market, it is a product, it fits well. But then I can't compete with a lot of pencil players who worked for years together. Right? It has to have a competitive edge apart from product market fit. Okay, then it has to have unit economics, it has to have the ecosystem for that. Okay, so it's a very complex, ideas are very complex things to process because it involves a lot of dimensions, a lot of perspectives. If an entrepreneur or the ideator processes it well, I see that the chances of idea getting failed is very less.
Can I say something at least? First one, so I think the question of yours is extremely complex, and he has given a very simple solution to process everything. But the thing is, we do all simulations, right? Something called as boundary conditions, right? We have to put, like for example, in this room, you have to know the length, the breadth, and everything, right? For example, if I just take into account only the breadth of the room and start walking and hit the wall, but if I don't know about like the boundary conditions, right? And it is very hard for a person who's just starting to a startup to think of all the possibilities that my product is going to be. Very hard. I mean, someone experienced like Mr. Nagendra will know. And I'm pretty sure in his journey he would have faced some new challenges as he's going ahead. So, as I said, first response to your question was it's very hard to tell why something is failing. There are n number of reasons, and you can't get out of them. Right?
So moving on, that's a good setting. We've talked a lot about digital technology, digital health, but we do also see the challenges, right? I've got to know that you were part of the HIS implementation at St. George, right? So, what are the challenges that you like to summarize very crisply? Why the adoption of digital technology with the HCPs in the healthcare industry is growing?
One simple answer to adoption is time. As we all understand, we say we put a computer, it's going to make things more efficient. But busy example, St. John's we see about 3,000 patients maximum. In the morning, we're talking about 4 hours. In CMC level, I know it's 10,000. If you try and put a computer and get a doctor to fill in every form, the charting time is about 3 minutes. Roughly, that's how long they spend with their patients, and that's what we can afford. It becomes a huge challenge for them to adopt technology. So there are some successes, many failures. And I think this is where I'm hoping that tools which are evolving, like HealthCare or which can be tailored for both secondary and tertiary care.
From my side also it's the same thing because even in private setup, so Tony spoke about medical colleges, even in private setup it is the same problem. So the volume is so high that the doctors and nurses are so busy taking care of patients that they hardly have time for documentation and using systems. And especially even the hardware part, right? A lot of times we only talk about software. What are the forms, Gen AI will help, or voice recognition will help, but we don't talk about the hardware problems, the keyboards, the computers. There are instances where I've started the OPD and switched on the computer, and it is going on and on and on and on, and it takes like 10 minutes to even the screen to come up. And then when the load is high, it takes 15 minutes for the patient to open. So, these are the problems. In that 15 minutes, I would have seen already 4 or 5 patients. So, we have to address these problems at the grassroots level. Only then there will be better adoption of technology and better adoption and usage of the system that we develop. So, we are only sitting and creating these things, but at the grassroots level, how are we helping? And it takes so much of money every other day because there's so much usage of keyboard that every 10 days the keyboard is gone. So the person who is running the hospital is like, it's a cost for them. Where are they going to keep on replacing these keyboards all the time? So I press A and it never punches A again. And I press hard, it punches 3 times. So how do you solve these type of problems which we don't talk about, right? So those are the real grassroots issues that we have. Not about the Gen AI. Gen AI comes later. I'm sorry.
Now let me add something, please. So really quickly. So there is this deep mind we all know. There's something called as AlphaGo. If you guys know about it. So Go is one of the hardest games to. Yeah. So they developed AlphaGo and they said I'm going to challenge the smartest person, the best AlphaGo player, and they beat the person. So they played 5 rounds, and this person can win only 1, and AlphaGo can win 4. Right? So basically 4 out of 1. People congratulated. There is a service now a Nobel laureate, and they said, "Great, like you have done the impossible." And this is the most important part, and this is the answer to this question. He said, "Well, to beat him 4 times, it took 4 floors of processing power, right? And this guy to beat AlphaGo, it took just 1 sandwich." So all I want to say is, human intelligence is right now way better than see your melting. Well, you know how hard it is on the environment when you're generating anything. The solution to this is train more healthcare professionals. Right now the ratio is 1:1,000 or 1:5,000. I don't know. Train more professionals. it is very easy to teach a child how to recognize an apple compared to AI to recognize an apple, right? Trust me, it's very easy. Show a kid an apple, next time you show an apple, he'll say it's an apple. That's easy. To do that with the AI, well, if you're in the AI field, you know how hard it is. Get more healthcare professionals for the next 10 years when AI or quantum computing or edge computing or parallel processing is at the stage that it can assist human beings. So, train
For the statement, right? So we're talking about technology. Good. So we talked about what has not worked through the challenges in adoption. So how can we make it work? You mentioned a bit about understanding the product market fit. So an innovator or a healthcare professional may not understand the marketing or sometimes the finance. Yesterday we had a workshop on setting up your healthcare practice. So when we on the first theme is the collaboration. So when we talk about collaboration, who do you think is missing on the table? Or because of which these innovations are either not being adopted or digital transformation is not happening or innovations. So I have the question, right? So for better collaboration, better outcomes, who are the stakeholders who necessarily need to be part of the ecosystem?
I think from what notes which I circulated, you mentioned that trying investors, the engineers, and the professionals. But the ecosystem includes, of course, the real world in this case is patient group, where consumption of healthcare patient is the final consumer. The healthcare provider, the final patient. And as you mentioned about empathizing with the needs, for example, I'm sure most of your this audience must be using some kind of app to order your medicines. Today, you can order your lab tests. You have a lab tech at your doorstep within 6 to 8 hours. Or the samples, at the end of the day, the results. These things are happening every day. I can order. So I'm saying successes are happening, but when you look at that scale, there are huge challenges. 80 to 90% of our healthcare startups comes back to this whole question about understanding the needs of the consumer. And then recently, my colleagues did a large scale study across the country, a needs farming study to understand this right from the grassroots, from the ASHA workers to CIOs of companies to understand what's going on. Coming up with a paper soon, but in summary, yes, there's a lot of gaps in the industry. So I think there are issues in the ecosystem itself.
So you are saying that the patient has to be on the table as well.
I think patients are always on the table, right? Because if I'm doing healthcare innovation without thinking about patient and what I was supposed to do. So patients are always the first thing that's where the problem starts, right? So I think the reason it is failing, and also to answer the question what you asked me previously, is because of the pressure that's in it, right? Pressure from the investors, pressure from the market, pressure towards the innovation. I can give examples like think of Theranos, billions of dollars of company, policies with them, innovators with them, whole billion of scientists with them, still they fail. The reason is the pressure, right? They have to prove the world that they have the best diagnostic, one drop of blood, they can diagnose 80 to 90 parameters, right? And they were claiming all these false things that we can do it. We're working in the army, but it's a pressure. But actually, they can, if that sort of money was given to any scientist, the billions of dollars, I'm pretty sure they could have bought something which can detect at least 10 to 15 parameters in drop of blood. But that pressure, even the investors give you a lot of pressure. Right? So I think it's the reason healthcare startups are failing is not because of collaboration. Of course, I can go and talk to an engineer, a scientist, a business person, all of us can come together, think of all the aspects and think of a best startup possible. But I think the pressure, the time pressure, that financial pressure, the expectation pressure, that's the reason any startup fails. I mean, there is not a special case for healthcare. I mean, I'm talking in general, so that's my concern.
I think it's the same thing because we have to understand the ecosystem and there is a lot of variability in healthcare because it is not 1 plus 1 equals 2 all the time. So there are many times for us, even if I've treated hundreds of patients, my next 101 patient might be different. whether it is surgery, whether it is medical condition. So the way they react to each medicine is different. So the variability is way too much in medicine. And a lot of it is subjective, a lot of it is perception. Because some patients get better just with paracetamol. Some patients don't react to paracetamol at all. They need a very high dose of pain medicine to treat the same pain. One will be rolling on the floor, and another one will be like, I'm fine. So you cannot just standardize it and say, okay, this is it. These are the algorithms. These are the algorithms I will follow, and I'm going to get the output. It doesn't work like that in many instances. Because there are few things you can standardize, but there are few things which are subjective. So we need to get somewhere in between the solution, which kind of take into account these two. So that is one of the reasons, and of course, we have to have all the stakeholders in the game. Otherwise, we might miss a critical input when we are looking for solutions. So we might come up with a solution which is half-baked. So that is another reason.
My perspective on this, since what we're talking about is why there is a failure by our success. So most of our endeavor, right, the success comes when we realize that you have a skill versus a domain skill. Once you move towards success, there are two parts: your domain skill ends and the human skill starts. And when you complete that, okay, see, for example, on the healthcare side, of course, you have to look from the research or your medicines or something like that. But I think it requires a little bit more than that, because you're interacting with heterogeneous, people there, not homogeneous. Okay? But if the patient is different, your MD is different, as is suggested, Peddi suggested, like investors are different. Okay, so to deal with, you require certain aspect of human skills, correct? So your domain skills is, it will take to a level where you can solve scientific research problems. Then when we go to this, where it has to be successful. Successful is defined by not only me but the people involved, right? So then we do require that skill. Okay, so then once we have this very smooth traversal of this, of course, Dr. Peddi will be in that position in months to time when it's product goes to a larger scale. So then we understand, once we do that one cycle, we understand that you have to make the travel to make it successful. Like, for example, right? Other is the biggest endeavor in the country, right? To make it successful, not only the scientific, he has to deal with both the government, Congress as well as the BJP. And then he has to deal with the bureaucrats. And I still heard about a story from one of the interviewers. He went to meet Chief Minister Jagannathan. She told him, "You want to be meeting you." In spite of that, he made successful. So that's the kind of one of the biggest example for us, the role models we think if you want to success is the medical. Okay, so once we follow that footstep, most of the things will be successful. And positive, just to be a lot of encouragement.
I think some signals started coming in that we need to run up, right? Or that was gives us any questions to ask. We can take a couple of questions. So, we will just two more questions to the panelists. So we talked about the collaboration. The next part, examples of India to the globe. Right? If you can quickly share, then we can get to the global part as well. That's the part of the structure of the session. So let's complete that, and then yes, we want to also interact with the audience and have questions from them. Very quickly, India to the globe.
I think India has potential and talent to do that. I've worked with two companies and tried to do Bangalore-based companies. One is it's a point of care device which is developed out of IIC. Today is reached multiple other countries.
And the name of
this is SmallBio. Big Tech is the R&D lab in Bangalore, but SmallBio is one of the companies that makes a TrueNet platform to test TB. They have 40 other tests. We just finished a large trial for a malaria chip in a very difficult place. So we test things in the real world. In Asia, there is no connection. And this is the kind of rigor that we want that should be done. Another is a startup from Bangalore by a cardiologist, Tricor. Tricor has screened over 24 million people for ECGs across the world. started in Impact, now in 14 countries, and saved over 850,000 people by detecting cardiac issues by a simple ECG using an ECG plus AI. This is examples of what can start off here as an idea and succeed and actually spread to the rest.
So let me talk about my own startup, Theranos. So we call ourselves a deep tech, and the definition of deep tech is not like you're using some AI and calling yourself deep tech. This is some technology that you invented, invested your time, some 2 decades in it, and developed a technology which no one else in the world has. Doing things in scale doesn't mean you're giving something to the world. The thing is, I'm doing some 10 lakh patients, but some company in US it's not going to come and say, can you give this tech to us? Because they can develop this own tech. It's AI, everyone is doing these days. The thing is, like for example, nano robotics, we are sort of bunch of the groups, very few groups, some 9 to 10 groups who are pioneering this, and now we are taking it to clinical trials. This clinical trial is the globally first clinical trial of nano robotics for any therapeutic function. And the thing is, a lot of companies are coming to us. So when the investors came and asked us how are we going to sell this product, and we will tell them we are not going to sell this product. No, we are not we don't have people in the marketing team or sales team, right? Because we are the Intels of the world, we are the Indians of the world. But we are going to license the technologies to these big companies. They're going to sell that product, and we're going to work on the next innovation that we're going to bring in. The next market we are going to disrupt with a technology which sort of doesn't exist. So basically, lot of, Thermometer is an example because I'm working in this, but the other company as well, we're bringing in new tech which doesn't exist. So yeah.
So for me, the examples are where the healthcare professional is the innovator, the tech is the engine, and the investors or enablers. So examples for that would be, for example, Urban High Hospital. So taking a problem and going deep into it and understanding how to solve it and putting everything together around that, the eye blindness and cataract surgery. So they kind of mastered that whole thing again and again and again, training people, doing the same thing over and over again. So the technicians, the nurses, the doctors were very, very quick in doing the surgeries. And they brought in technology which kind of helped them to do these surgeries faster. Of course, by the investors' help, they were able to expand it into many cities and the tier 2, tier 3 cities. So such examples, which is patient-centered, taking up one problem and developing the entire ecosystem around that. So Urban Hospital is one such example. The Hyderabad Gastro Center is one such example. But they've just taken one issue and kind of gone deep into it. So I think that really helps. And you see fellows coming from abroad to do fellowship in these institutes.
Okay. Yeah. Environment companies from the smart city in Saudi Arabia, some of the biggest market vaccines, and we provide the solutions to Mercedes Benz for cost regulations. Okay, and then we are working with the largest pharma company in the world. So that's giving the India to world, and we first calling the period in India, and also we bring the first rapid vision facility of chips.
So I'll open it for the audience and then do a quick wrap up for the last part in terms of need. So any questions from the audience? Yeah. The person from critical.
So, very question. As part of the building area of healthcare, we do spend a lot of money getting the data, curating the data, and taking the models. But at the end of the day, when we sell the solutions to the hospitals, they are very different. So, how do we convince the hospitals that they also get to invest or buy these solutions and need to save some money? move the question directly. Yeah, the question for entrepreneur.
Just have one person answer it because we'll take a few other questions and then
Don't mind me saying, so don't mind me saying this, but there's a saying in like you don't have to convince people to. You should just tell about your product and people just should just jump on it. So if you're trying very hard to convince people, then something is wrong. It should be very attractive to people. You should tell them this is what's going to do, this is the benefits you're going to get, and they should, yeah, absolutely. But if you're telling all of this and people say, yeah, maybe I don't need it. So yeah, that's my answer.
okay, so just for the questions. But any last comments wrapping up? Somebody you want to what next? How to lead? The challenge is yes, resource constraint, cost constraint, especially from an India context. What should we be doing? So
I think we should just go with what policies are being rolled out. 22 to them, I should not keep up with entrepreneurship policy for medical colleges, dental colleges. When few institutes have created their own incubation spaces, but engineering institutes and management institutes have their incubators. I think we should see more medical schools creating these spaces, thinking spaces where collaboration and real-world testing happens, so that the needs are understood and translated to actual solutions.
I think from my side, I think each one of us have to do our bit in our organization because we can't wait for a lot of things to fall in place. So what can I do? For example, in my space as a physician, I am always thinking, okay, what next for my patient? How do I bring in a comprehensive program for diabetes? Because that's the biggest challenge that I face in my practice. So I think if every one of us start thinking like this and go back to the administrator and say, these are the plans that I'm putting together for my patient, how can you help? This is a tech. This is the infrastructure I need. This is the personnel I need. And let's come together and work. So I think in smaller groups, if we start doing, I think we can achieve a much larger impact on an ongoing basis. So each one of us have to take that responsibility and do it.
So I give one of my experiences in your primary schools, the real life, it's straightforward. The point that is the way you go from one point to the other point is so straight line. But in real world, what happens is it's like a path of football in a football ground. Okay, this is a linear path when you actually work in the real world. You should be having the skills like a football player to actually take you forward to the group. That's what I can say because there's no hard and fast rule. Every context.
Thank you. So I think when I finished this with a quote from Michelangelo when he said, I found a stone and I found an angel trapped in it. So I carved it till I set the angel free. So basically persistence in what you're doing, fail early, fail better, and keep failing till you get success. And don't try to be an entrepreneur, that's not how it works. If you're doing something in your life and you see there's a gap, I can solve this, then you be an entrepreneur. These days, people would like to be CEO first, then let's see what I can solve. So,
thank you.